Hello guys, today we're going to at feed account for movies. But before this year, the widest release was Despicable Me 3, ever in history. And before that, it was Twilight for literally 7 whole years. Yes, Twilight was the widest release, literally, for 7 years. And then Despicable Me 3 came out, proving that movies can go wider than this many feeders. And the year after that, we got two more movies that have passed that: Avengers Infinity War and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Both have surpassed it. And then in 2019, of course, Endgame, they had to put Endgame in the most amount of feet as possible because it was the biggest movie ever. But that opened the floodgates for literally every other big movie, or not as big movie, Pets 2, um, Pets 2 being the only movie in the top 20 to have grossed under $200 million. And of course, and one of the only two movies in the top 30. The other one being Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. But this is let's just go opening weekends. For a more accurate one, we still have Despicable Me. Here at number one, and of course, 3 years ago, Twilight was the number one widest release of all time. Twilight Saga Eclipse. I don't like Twilight Saga Eclipse, but it was number one widest release of all time. But now, all of a sudden, movies from Disney and non-Disney alike, it's Chapter 2, are releasing more than 4,500 feeders. Last year, there was only one movie over 4,500 feeders. Now, there are 7. What caused this? All of a sudden change. Well, each movie put up the bar for how wide a movie can release. Twilight Saga Eclipse put up the bar for how wide a movie can come out in feeders. Before that was Iron Man 2, literally coming out 2 months before. 2010 was a year. It was a year where wide releases have been pushed to the bar. Of wide releases. Movies typically were around low 3,000 feeders to best at oversaturated releases. And basically, they have because all we have to do is go to the widest releases of 2010. We have Harry Potter's Deathly Hallows Part 1, Rango, that was 2011. So Harry Potter, Iron Man 2, and of course, Twilight. Ugh. How to Train Your Dragon, movies that have pushed the boundaries. Movies are starting to push the 4,000 feet apart boundary pretty easily now. And The Dark Knight set the bar originally for the widest release. We have 4,366 feeders. With other movies not getting very much close. And of course, Twilight and Iron Man 2 were the only two movies there to challenge those two movies in the widest release. Before then, movies barely got over 4,000 feeders. You had your occasional exceptions, that of course, but even it rarely ever saw movies over 4,000 feeders. And back in 1998, movies barely got over 3,000 feeders. it was lucky. Movies were lucky if they even reached 4,000 theaters. Until Shrek 2. Shrek 2 was and Spider-Man 2 were kind of innovative movies. They both pushed the movies past 4,000 theaters, and thus the trend began. And now in 2019, we have every major release coming out in 4,000 plus theaters. Every major release. And even minor releases like Crawl and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, movies that were traditionally released in 2,700 plus theaters. Since the bar has been pushed even more forward, these two movies are even in more theaters than they should really be in. So putting a movie in 3,000 theaters isn't really an achievement anymore, as now 3,000 plus theaters, any movie can get in it, as long as the movie company believes in it. That's why movies like Stubber and Silence Playlist didn't do too well, still managed to be in the 3,000 plus theater mark. But then we have comparing it to last year, we had so many movies reach 4,000 theaters. Lego Movie 2, How to Train Your Dragon 2, no 3, Captain Marvel, Dumbo, Shazam, Endgame, obviously, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, Aladdin, King of the Monsters, Pets 2, Man Back International, Toy Story 4, Spider-Man Far From Home, The Lion King remake, Fast and the Furious Hobbs and Shaw, and now It Chapter 2. All movies over 4,000 plus theaters. Last year, we had many movies on the net amount of theaters as well. Every major release came out. Major release, not minor releases. But you never saw movies past the Despicable Me number until Endgame pushed up the bow, and then Disney decided to say, oh, let's push up the bow even more, and then Disney decided to continue pushing up the bow with the Lion King remake now being the new bow of 4,700 theaters, which basically signals to every other major company, hey, we can now start putting movies in over 4,500 plus theaters, like It's Chapter 2 and Pets 2, and of course Spider-Man Far From Home, also coming out in this much theaters, and Disney also putting Toy Story 4 and 4,500 plus theaters. Because if Disney could have released Aladdin in this range here too, but they decided not to. And that's basically it. The Lion King remake and Endgame basically pushed theaters to the absolute max, now to the absolute new limit. How many theaters are in America, to be exact? And China has over 100,000 theaters. So, there are a total of 5,833 movie theaters. So that means, as of 2016, The Lion King. Oh, wait. Come on. The Lion King remake is literally in 81% of all theaters. All theaters. But then we have other countries. China, there's around 60,000 cinema screens, and it has around 10,000 movie theaters. And of course, this is the amount of theaters, not the amount of screens. And this is basically the amount of theaters the movies have in. And this is So that's basically it about the not why is this happening. Of course, the eventually going to, or companies eventually going to get over 5,000 feeders probably in the next decade. Considering that we went to over 4,000 feeders in very less than a decade. The first movies to pass 400,000 feeders are Shrek 2 and Spider-Man 2, which are both sequels to heavily anticipated series. And of course, Socktail, one of the worst movies ever made, still mad being over 1,000 plus feeders, 4,000 plus feeders as well. Do not know why. But that's the Socktail and a nutshell. That movie's terrible. Awful. 0 out of 10 movie.